Are Newcastle United about to open talks with defender Sven Botman over a new contract which will see him through to 2030? Anthony Gordon has spoken out for the first time really regarding all the rigmarole with the Liverpool transfer not long ago and where he is in his own headspace now. And Alan Shearer has had to come out and painfully praise Sunderland for their start to the new season. Let's go. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Toon Review YouTube channel. This is Paul with your latest Newcastle United news, and we will start off with the Sven Botman situation. Now we know that when Ross Wilson took the Director of Football job, it seemed like his first major task was to get our elite players under contracts for a substantial amount of time, better pay, etc. We all know that, and we knew that the contracts that they were on at the moment, they needed extended, they needed bettered because of what happened with Isak in the summer, and where we are as a football club now, to be fair, because where we are now, we are in a much better position to offer these players better deals. We are actually succeeding with our process and whatever the PIF have in store for us. We're moving up the table, we're in Europe. It's where we want to be, and we have to pay these players to be that kind of football club. We know that, and this seems to be starting to happen. Of course, it was said last week that Tonali had extended his contract while he was suspended up until 2029 with a year's extension optional. However, it looks like they're going to go back into Tonali to make his contract even better. There's the 5-year deal for Bruno, and then, of course, there's Livramento, there's Hall, there's various other players who we need to get under contract, to be honest, with better extensions. So it all looks good for Sven Botman. Now, the report states that the representatives of Botman himself are due to meet with the club this week for talks. Having recently been installed as the Newcastle Sporting Director, Ross Wilson will be the person now overseeing the new deals with existing players, as well as the recruitment of new signings. Now, Eddie's already spoke about this as well, and how much of a workload that's taken off him. And that's vital, because Eddie Howe had far too much to do as a football manager in the summer just gone. It was ridiculous. He had to rely on people that really weren't in that job role. You know, we had Steve Nixon running around like some kind of executive. That's not really his job. Of course, his family members all getting involved as well. It was far too much, and we needed a director of football. Eddie has stated in press conferences recently how important it is to have Ross Wilson there. And it looks like we have a very good leadership team in place now with David Hopkinson, Ross Wilson, and of course Eddie Howe managing the football team. So it's Sven Botman contract talks. Now, this has come from Chris FT, who has a decent record when it comes to info on what is happening with players and clubs. He reports that this information is that Newcastle United are offering an extension of 3 years on his current deal. So instead of the 30th of June 2027, the proposed new contract would take the defender up to the 30th of June 2030, which will be beyond his 30th birthday. Now, that seems to be what we are aiming for as a club at the minute. If you look at the reports on the contract extensions, it's taken players well beyond their 30th birthday. So we are going to get their very, very best years at this football club. And I think that's what Newcastle United, to be fair, are moving towards. Making sure that these elite players are with this football club during their very, very best years. Of course, between maybe 25 and 30 years old is when you're at your peak. But obviously, centre-backs, they can go on beyond that as well and keep performing. Look at Fabian Shearer. You know, and Dan Burn, when he's at centre-back, of course. They perform really well. His performances this season have been back to what we witnessed before his horrendous injury issues started. And of course, he was part of the defence with Pope, Trippier, Shearer and Byrne that had the joint lowest number of goals conceded in 2022-23. Now, confirmation also, Nick Pope has extended his contract by an extra year. And to be honest, the way Nick Pope's playing at the minute, I don't think we can even argue with that. I think that's a very, very good deal. And Sandro Tonali effectively till the end of 2030. It's all good news with regards to contracts. And if you remember, Sven Botman came out a couple of weeks ago and actually said that he will be delighted to sign an extension with Newcastle United. This was on the back of course, reports sniffing around saying Liverpool were interested in Sven Botman in the summer of 2026 to take him to Anfield. And Botman's come out very, very quickly and said he wants to sign a contract extension with Newcastle United. He loves this football club and he wants to stay. And I think for us as fans, that is absolutely incredible news and really good news that players are actually coming out now saying, we want to sign the extensions. We want to stay at this football club. We love it here. And I think, we as fans, we should be really pleased by that and really hopeful now that Ross Wilson is coming in and really taking this by the scruff of the neck and getting these players under extensions before he then moves to, obviously, the transfer window in January and then further down the line, obviously, into the summer of 2026. So fantastic news regarding Botman, and let's keep fingers crossed that deal gets done and sewn up really, really quickly. Anthony Gordon. Now, of course, there was a lot going on with Anthony Gordon when, of course, we sold Minte and Anderson, of course, to Nottingham Forest. Gordon was expecting to leave. This is what he said in a recent interview, that he actually expected to leave the football club. He was all geared up to go and sign for Liverpool because he believed, now I don't know where he got his information from, but he genuinely believed that he was the one that Newcastle United were going to have to sacrifice. And he's explained as well how the turnaround in that sort of played in his head a little bit. He was all prepared to leave Newcastle United. He doesn't say, I was excited to join Liverpool or anything like that. Obviously, he probably was because he was a Liverpool fan. However, things have changed since then, and he's explained that with the PSR stuff going around, I thought I was going to leave at some point of the window, but it didn't happen. I had to get my head around that to begin with, which means getting his head around leaving, and then get my head around it again, and it was hard. So expecting to leave, then staying, it's got to play with your mind a little bit. Of course it has, and sort of that's what Anthony's getting at. But now it seems like Gordon is in such a much better place because we can see it on the pitch. His form is improving. And this is what he went on to say. He says, I'm not linked to any clubs now, and I'm very happy where I am. I'm enjoying my football again, and I feel refreshed. I feel like I've got that hunger and that bite back that makes me a good player. I didn't have that last year, and that was because of the drainage of 3 years of constantly playing games, the noise around me. I had no rest. And it's a very good point that he makes, and I think a lot of us who do these Newcastle United channels did mention that as well, that, he hadn't had a break. He played, he goes away for the under-21s championship. He's then back playing another season. He's then away for the Euros. He didn't get any break in the summer. And we have to acknowledge that the effort that Anthony Gordon has put in is simply incredible because he didn't get the rest that other players have had. And I think that's why he makes a point. He says, after the under-21 Euros, I had 4 days off. And then last summer, I had over a week off, plus all the noise. All the noise about leaving, it's playing in his head, and the noise he refers to is obviously the Liverpool saga and how much it took out of him. But we are seeing Anthony Gordon now in a very good place. And he says now, all I care about is Newcastle. The way I got into the England squad was playing for Newcastle. That is a big statement from Anthony Gordon because he is then now acknowledging that Newcastle United, Eddie Howe, they've done a lot for him. They've done a lot for him, keeping him at the football club, and now obviously taking him to the next level. And because he's in such a good headspace, we're seeing it on the pitch, guys. We're seeing it on the pitch. Now, whether you like Anthony Gordon or not, he has improved dramatically over the last few games, and he's really been a thorn in the opposition side. He's getting goals, he's creating goals, he's taking players on. You can see the confidence levels right there in Anthony Gordon now, and it's fantastic to see. And long may that continue, by the way. Now, Alan Shearer has had to really grind his teeth when praising Sunderland's start of the season. He was basically having a bit of banter with Micah Richards on the Rest is Football podcast regarding Sunderland and how he said, if you'd asked me if Sunderland would be 3rd or 4th in the league after 9 games, you would have maybe said that I was crazy, that I needed to be in a nut house. Bournemouth in second as well. He says, can you imagine if if before a ball was kicked, and I'd said, I think Sunderland after 9 games are going to be third, you lot would think what a fool he is. Now, Mickey Richards had a laugh and says, Alan, have you been sniffing drugs again? And he said, we must mention, I mean, you said there, Sunderland, it must be quite painful for you at the moment, Alan, but what a performance. And Alan went on to say that obviously the coach has done a brilliant job, and he went on to say well done to Sunderland. But he also said, this is through severe gritted teeth, and it pains me to say it. But as in a role of a pundit, Alan Shearer has got to say these things. And we as Newcastle fans might look at that and say, oh, for God's sake, we don't, one person we don't want praising Sunderland is Alan Shearer, the legend. However, in his punditry role, he has to. He's got no choice. He's going to look stupid if he doesn't say, oh, yes, Sunderland have had a good start, etc., etc. He's going to look ridiculously silly. So he's got to say it as a pundit, whether we as Newcastle fans like it or not. That's just the way it is. So it's a pain in the arse, but you know what? He's got to say it. And listen, through gritted teeth, it is a good start for Sunderland. Of course it is. Nobody expected them to be where they are. But we'll see them soon. We'll see them soon. But there you go. That is the latest news, guys. Let me know in the comments down below. As per usual, what do you think of Sven Botman? Is he a player that we desperately need to keep as well? Are you happy that the contract talks are going to start? And do you think Anthony Gordon is in a better place at the moment with his form? Let me know in the comments. But do give the video a like, guys, if you've enjoyed it. And of course, if you're new, please do subscribe. It is completely free. Help us build the channel that way. All we ask for is you hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live show. And of course, visit our merch shop for hoodies, t-shirts, caps, hats, whatever you need at thetoonreview.com. But thank you very much for watching the video. We will see you very soon. Take care.